The game of Big Brother has been constantly evolving for over 20 years. Each season, we see new twists that change the way the game is played. But this season, Season 24, we saw a new, legitimately unexpected twist that majorly changed the format of the game. And yet, the producers still found a way to fuck it up. Hello everyone, my name is Josh, and welcome to a Big Brother analysis video. Now, first of all, I have to say, Peridium, I promise I'm not coming for your gig, girl. This style of video is absolutely inspired by his channel, so please go check him out. I just have not been this intrigued by a Big Brother twist in years, so I wanted to make a video talking about it. Today, we are going to be analyzing the Split House twist from Big Brother Season 24. And I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Spoiler warning ahead. If you are not caught up with this season so far, I will be discussing everything that has happened in the game up until this twist. So, let's get into it, shall we? We'll start back on day 44. Indy has just been evicted by a 7-1 vote, and I have to say, it was thoroughly entertaining to see someone finally get evicted in a unitard again. It never fails to entertain me. And is Indy still giving a speech?
And I hope you guys really regret about this, because if this money goes to the wrong person, then I'm gonna be angry.
I was honestly shocked that Julie did not cut her off, because Julie has proven she will cut you off.
Kyland, I need you to leave right now. Kyland, I need you to leave right now. Thank you.
So Indy is evicted, and the house guests are called back to the living room, where Julie drops this bombshell of a twist. But in my opinion, I think this was the first of many mistakes producers made with this twist. But I'll touch on that more later in the video. So Julie reveals that in just moments, the house guest will compete for head of household, but 2 HOHs will be crowned. The house will then be split into 2 groups of 5. One HOH will reign over a group inside, while the other HOH will reign over a group, I still can't believe I'm saying this, outside, in the backyard. You heard that right. Those 5 unfortunate souls will live outside in the backyard for the entire week. I honestly think these jaw-dropping reactions from the house guest are because they're coming to terms with this sad reality. So what happens next? Julie tells the house guest to head to the backyard, and you'll never guess what they do. Of course, they immediately start talking to each other. I mean, I don't blame them. They weren't told not to. But, this totally ruins the entire momentum of this twist. They can just really talk about it? Anyway, I digress. I will talk about this more in a moment. The HOH competition is a knockout, and the 2 winners end up being Michael and Terrence. Since Michael won the last round of the competition, he'll be living inside the house at Big Brochella? That's the best name you guys could come up with. And Terrence will be the HOH outside the house at Dyrefest. So, at this point, fans had been speculating for days about how the 2 groups would be formed, and the only thing that even remotely seemed fair would be to have a random draw. You know, like when they pick players for the veto competition, and oh my god, they're doing a schoolyard pick? The immense disappointment and despair that I felt while watching this live is indescribable. There are other things about this twist that we as a community can forgive, but this decision is unforgivable. Alas, I once again will leave my thoughts about this decision until a little later in this video. So Michael and Terrence do their little schoolyard pick, and the groups of 5 are formed. Finally, we can breathe a sigh of relief and let these groups be split up. Wait, are they all going inside? They're all just talking to each other again? The producers fully allowed the house guests to openly talk in a group when you're about to isolate both groups for an entire week, and we didn't even get to see this on the live feeds, so I'm confident that there were many whispers and many plans made in these few minutes that completely ruined the integrity of this twist. The house has finally been split. 5 inside, 5 outside. But now that the novelty of this new and exciting twist has worn off, we're left with a pretty bleak reality. First of all, the gameplay in each group is now a Final Five dynamic, which I hate to say it, but that's kind of boring. We have one HOH and 2 nominees, which only leaves 2 votes to evict. That means that the only 2 possible scenarios are either a 2-0 vote or a 1-1 tie with an HOH tiebreaker. And don't get me wrong, the Final Five dynamic is not a bad thing, but having it this early in the game just ends up stifling the gameplay. I mean, we're at the final 10. The jury just started. The game is supposed to be getting juicy. And we have people lounging around with almost no gameplay happening. It just overall feels disappointing. Next, I have to talk about the objectively worst part of this twist, the backyard. This entire situation was a nightmare, and there are literally so many things to say about it, so I'm going to try to make this quick. The 5 outsiders were only given a tiny kitchen area, porta potties, an outdoor shower, and some sleeping bags. That's it. They were expected to live 24/7 in this giant box with no AC, no shade, nothing. So, of course, there were several glaring issues that arose pretty quickly. The house guests were obviously hot. I mean, they were just sitting out in the sun all day, getting burnt to a crisp. So after several days, what did the producers decide to do? They put up a tarp over the backyard. But this only ended up making it hotter because there was no wind, so the heat just got trapped under the tarp. On top of that, the house guests were dealing with awful bugs, mosquitoes all over them, ants literally everywhere. But then the worst of the worst happened. This is all speculation, but it is extremely likely that someone outside of the house attempted to yell into the backyard and give away outside information. Now, I have my opinions on wall yelling, but that is not for this video. So what did the producers do to combat this wall yelling? They started blasting music, non-stop music, for days. Not only did this mean that they cut off the feeds, fully cut off the feeds for several days, it got so bad that producers had to give the outsiders headphones just to drown out the music. They ended up taking apart furniture and started covering themselves with cushions just so they could sleep without being attacked by bugs and by the volume of the music. I would argue this is basically a form of torture. Like, it's so bad, and all of this could have been avoided by production. So, now you know all of the ways that this split house twist ultimately failed. Now, did it produce some interesting gameplay? Sure. But overall, this twist fell flat, stifled gameplay, and probably literally was a form of torture. So, at this point in the video, I want to analyze this twist and come up with the ways that it could be fixed. Keep in mind, this is all my opinion, and if you don't agree with my points, then please start a respectful discussion in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. So, how do I think that this twist could be improved? By never running it ever again. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm really not kidding. I don't think this twist should ever be run again, but let's consider for a second that it is. The first major change is that the producers should be way more intentional about not letting the house guests talk to each other before they're split up. So after the twist is announced, no talking. It's simple. This would avoid whispers and plans being shared before the split, which ultimately ruins the novelty of this twist. The second and most glaring change is that the groups should have never been decided with a schoolyard pick. I could go into a million reasons why this was an awful idea and how it ultimately will always benefit large alliances, so yeah, definitely get rid of that. I have 2 possible options here. One, the most obvious, is just to do a random draw. That's the most fair option, that's the most unexpected option, and I 100% believe this is what should have happened this season. But I have a second idea that I want to throw out there, and I think this would be super interesting. It sort of ties into the idea that half the house lives inside, half the house lives outside. What does this dynamic remind you of? Haves and have-nots. Fans have been saying for years that have-not competitions coming back would bring a fresh element back into the game, and this would have been a perfect opportunity. The 5 that lose the competition would have to live in the backyard, sleep in sleeping bags, use the porta potty, while the 5 that win the competition get to live in luxury inside with parties and alcohol. Now, obviously, there would have to be a few logistical things to work out. The competition obviously wouldn't be split into teams, it would be played individually, and it would have to be like score-based or endurance-based so that there are 2 clear groups formed. But it's just an idea, so please let me know what you think in the comments. Alright, now comes the fun part of this video. So I'm going to run this dream scenario with you of how I think this twist should have been run. So let's rewind back to day 44 once again. Indy has just been evicted and Julie calls everyone to the living room. But this time, things are a little different. Hello, house guest. Hi, Julie. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that, I promise. So Julie reveals the twist to the house guest, but instead of telling them they're about to compete for head of household, she reveals that they will be competing for immunity. Yep, that's right. This twist is taking a page out of Survivor's book. But don't worry, we're still keeping it unique to Big Brother. Julie tells the house guests to head to the backyard, but this time with a strict no talking rule. No whispering, no scheming, no pushing? The house guest would then compete for immunity. Michael wins immunity and gets to be a have, living in luxury inside the house. Terrence comes in second place, also winning immunity, but having to live outside as a have-not. Now, the groups are then either decided by a random draw or by a have-not competition. It honestly doesn't matter. Both are better than a f***ing schoolyard pick. But let's just go with random draw. Now, the 2 groups are formed, and they immediately separate with the have moving inside, the have-nots staying outside, and the house is split. Now, I know you might be wondering, Josh, didn't you just rant about how making the have-nots live in the backyard is basically torture? You're right, I did. And that's where the last part of this twist comes in. Instead of lasting an entire week long, the twist would only last for 24 hours. The have-nots would only spend 1 night in the backyard, which is much more doable. This also forces both sides of the split house to actually play the game, and quickly, because they don't have time to just sit around. Plus, since there's no HOH and no nominees, there are many more possibilities. It's always been an argument that Survivor eliminations can be way more complex because everyone can vote and anyone, except the immunity holder, can be eliminated. By using Survivor rules here, it would open up this twist to much more interesting gameplay. Also, for reference, when this twist was introduced, it was advertised as a 2-hour special episode, but fans were immensely disappointed because almost an hour and a half of the episode was just filler content. It was so boring, and they cut out so much of this twist. I mean, they even cut out the schoolyard pick at the end. Which, honestly, they can keep that. But the point here is that they had an entire 2-hour time slot, which could have been used in a much smarter way. Use it for this twist. I mean, don't. Please don't ever run this twist again. But if in some universe the split house twist is used again, I believe these major changes could actually fix this broken twist. Thank you all so much for watching this analysis video. I've never made something like this, and again, I was inspired by Peridium, so please go check his channel out, and please let me know your thoughts on this twist in the comments below. I would love to discuss it with you. Thank you again for watching. Bye!
Love you.
Love you all! Thank you. They're not opening the door for me!